Chainsaw Man was my first manga, and it was because of that I was ecstatic to hear that Chainsaw Man was becoming an anime. Not just that, but it was being animated by MAPPA. But now that part 1 has come and gone, I wanted to compare the manga to the anime, in areas where I maybe liked one more than the other. Of course, as they are wildly different mediums, it doesn't feel fair to say one is outright better than the other. So I won't be scoring each side to compare one another in such a way. Instead, I'll be highlighting the areas where one of the two mediums might be a better way to enjoy the story of Chainsaw Man. As for my own personal enjoyment, I found that the anime is an actual, genuine work of art, right along with the manga counterpart. So as far as how they fare against each other, I think you can enjoy one just about as much as the other. In the manga, things are more freeform, as is with the form of media as a whole. In manga, you can read and interpret different tones and emotions that might not have even been present in the anime. Or you could internalize a soundtrack and voices to this otherwise silent world that only tells you its story through fantastic drawings and written dialogue. And when brought to anime form, maybe it wasn't what you had internalized. But I find where manga wins in that sense, the anime takes the cake for me in terms of immersion, setting, and action. But more of that later. Let's start with the literal beginning of Chainsaw Man. Denji and his cute chainsaw devil dog that he finds and has an unlikely friendship with are struggling financially in a world where devils roam freely. And Denji's best source of pay is to use said dog like a chainsaw and murder them. While I feel I can say the obvious here, which is that, yeah, the anime was stronger here. They are virtually the same, but that's why, if you ask me, the anime's adaptation does it better. It does it better justice for making you feel for the characters, as in the manga it's only about 10 pages, and if you're a fast reader you'll basically be speedrunning this part of the story. And some people might prefer that, but I on the other hand prefer the anime's telling of the story, where we get an actual lengthy scene between Pochita and Denji, fully fledged with dynamic music, lighting, great voice acting, as well as longer amount of time dedicated to it altogether. So for the opening of Chainsaw Man as a whole, I do prefer the anime. And getting into the next part of Chainsaw Man, we have the part where Pochita and Denji get backstabbed, literally, and shoved into a dumpster. I would once again say that I think the anime did a great job here. I wish I had anything super interesting to say about why I prefer the anime here, but it really just had to do with the delivery as a whole. The setting was more immersive, the suspense was fantastic, and save for the manga of course, but the anime handled this so well that I have to commend it. Which, let's not get confused here, me commending the anime is not me condemning the manga, I just think the anime is a better experience here. For the following scene, we see Pochita and Denji reliving their memories together, and we see Pochita fall in love with Denji's dream. We then see him meld with Denji's heart. In the anime, it wasn't necessarily a long scene, but it was very well paced if you ask me. And in the manga, the scene was no more than 3 pages. And while it still contains all the same source material that was used in the anime, it is still lacking in the staging, immersion, and overall presentation that the anime brings, on a level where my imagination reading just couldn't keep up. Therefore, even for the Pochita scene, I prefer the anime once again. But finally giving the manga some slack, I will now mention the first place that I think the manga did it better, and that's when Pochita started talking to Denji directly. Right after fusing with him, I think something about seeing actual real speech bubbles next to Pochita in the manga hit in a different way that cannot be replicated. We all knew going into this anime/manga that it would be an insane ride, and the thought of a chainsaw dog is already ridiculous, but seeing him talk out of nowhere, that was still somehow a complete surprise to me. And maybe I'm just biased because the voice didn't work for me that well in the anime, as opposed to the weird dog voice that my head had just made up while reading. But not a knock on either interpretation of Pochita, I just really did enjoy this scene more in the manga. So I'm going to be speeding things up a little bit by covering the entire rest of part 1 of the anime, since I don't think much else needs to be touched on except for these 2 things. And I'll be starting with yet another anime win, and that is the action. The action in this show is so good. In the manga, we get super flashy shots of chunky action with powerful slices from Denji's chainsaw clearly displayed on one beautiful panel. But aside from that, one frame, no matter how awesome in the manga, does not compare to MAPPA's rendition of the action in this series. Insanely good-looking CGI as well as amazing impact frames, I just can't help but adore the action in this anime. I think when it comes to action, just straight up across the board, all manga versus all of, what we have for anime so far, the anime just so obviously wins that fight. Every scene where a fight breaks loose is done so phenomenally. I really don't think they even compare on this front whatsoever, as most manga are this way, but there are some who would argue that action in a manga like One Punch Man can outdo its anime counterpart, of course when referring to Season 2, because Season 1 was so peak that that's beside the point. In Chainsaw Man, it was done to perfection. So having said that, I obviously speedran just half of Chainsaw Man right there, since this is still very much an action shonen. So, to make up for that in favor of the manga, I'm going to be speedrunning the second half, which is all really the rest I have to say about the manga at all, because from here on out, I think the anime just does everything exactly how I had imagined it. Anyway, getting to the point, I actually think that every scene with Makima is a little bit more special in the manga. Not including the blindfolded sacrifices, which in the anime was done fantastically. Just the lighting, the mood, the setting, the way it carried on through the episode was fantastic. I find that the tone in Makima's character in the manga holds a better example of what a truly terrifying antagonist looks like. My only defense of the anime is that maybe they are still holding on to a little bit of a maybe she's not evil vibe. I think the manga more quickly makes her a menacing character, where the anime isn't sure yet, since they might be trying to keep as many secrets from the anime onlys as possible. I hate to say it, but aside from Makima, I don't see anywhere else in part 1 of the anime that the manga did it better. The only very obvious thing I can say is that the manga is ahead. So that's another huge strength just in general. If you are tired of waiting, then go ahead and read it. It's still a wonderful and highly enjoyable experience. Anyway, for Season 1, Part 1 of Chainsaw Man, that's anime versus manga. So let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.